What's going on, everybody? This is Mike, and this is Mike Untitled, episode number 4. And real quick, this is still probably popping up on your RetroGameFix.com feed. I started a new show over on MikeUntitled.com, so please visit MikeUntitled.com and update your feeds if you are looking for serial at night style podcasts. Also, please go to MikeUntitled.com/YouTube to see sim racing reviews like you've seen on the Retro channel. So sim racing, video games, audio, headphones, and we're going to do some videos on a 98 Dodge Viper that I just bought, as well as a 70 Mustang Mach-1 that I restored. So if you're into the cool hobbies that I'm into, please go to MikeUntitled.com/YouTube and check out those videos. All right, on with the show. Thanks. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Mike Untitled, episode number 4, and I am Mike. A couple days late here with this episode. Few things to talk about, and they all kind of run together on the video game front. But before we get to that, I've gotten a couple inquiries about doing another Viper episode. I will be doing another Viper episode. Unfortunately, it's been super cold in my garage. It's been really cold here in the upper Midwest, and I haven't wanted to heat the garage. And the next episode I want to do for the Viper is I want to show the exhaust cutouts and how that works with the exhaust, with them open, with them closed, and what kind of sound that you get with those. Mostly because I'm going to be taking the cutouts out of the car and putting stock exhaust manifolds back in. So I'll also do a video about that too. And I was hoping to actually get that video done like a week and a half ago. And every time I thought I would have the opportunity, I didn't. And then it started snowing and some other things happened. So I have not been able to get another Viper episode finished up, so I apologize for that. So on the docket for today, a couple conversation items. So I was able to get my hands on the DualShock 4 back button attachment, and it is actually really nice. I'm very impressed by it as kind of, I mean, as a $30 peripheral for a controller. It's pretty good. So we'll chat about that, probably kick off with that. And I've got to just look at my notes here. And then kind of specifically, there's been a lot of conversation about Sony taking games to PC. There's been conversations about, that's led to more conversations about exclusivity. And then Microsoft, there was kind of a clickbait headline going around about Microsoft isn't going to have any exclusive games in this generation. And I think there's some different ways we need to approach that because, of course, the Microsoft or Xbox ecosystem is going to have exclusives, but they'll be kind of cross-generational, and we're going to put generational in quotes because I've got some opinions there. And then just general kind of conversation around, I think the metric of console sales is a little bit dated at this point, given what kind of customer, acquisition funnels and channels that these companies are starting to pursue in order to make money, right? And so we'll get to all of that. But first, let's talk about the DualShock 4 back button attachment. So I thought this was scheduled for release Thursday or Tuesday or Thursday. Wario64 on Twitter had mentioned that they were kind of out in the wild at Walmart. So I ran out and picked one up. Actually, I picked 3 up. So I'm going to keep one for myself. If you're interested in winning one of these DualShock 4 button attachments, go to Twitter and retweet. You'll find a tweet that's pinned to my profile, or subscribe. That would be awesome. If you would subscribe here, I can also, give one away to a subscriber as well. But I can't. The only reason, it's not like this traditional giveaway. The only reason I need to know who you are. So if there's subscribers or people on my Twitter, retweeting, at least then I can figure out who's who and pick a random winner that way. So to the DualShock 4, when this one, or the button attachment, so when this was announced, there's always a lot of conversation about, well, is this Microsoft, or is this Sony's response to the Microsoft, Elite Series 2 or Elite controller, which I actually have, and it's an incredible controller. And it could be, it very well could be part of that. I think we're going to see Sony actually make a proper competitor to that controller this next generation, but it certainly gives you part of the functionality of that. But let's throw that out the window, right? The Xbox Elite controller is a controller in its own class, and trying to compare the two really does a disservice to what the DualShock 4 back button attachment actually brings to the table for $30, right? It's easily, you plug it into your PS4 controller and you get really some of the most sought after piece of some of the competitive controllers, and that's the two extra paddle buttons. And for the PS4, for the button attachment, you get 3 profiles, and then you can set the back buttons to whatever buttons you want on those 3 profiles. And the reason that I like the back triggers for this particular reason is, on the Series Elite controller, on the triggers, you can set the amount of throw that there is on the triggers. So for a shooter, I can make the throw a little less, so I can click, 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 click right on, if I don't have an automatic weapon in an FPS or something like that. So given that that's not part of the PlayStation controller, I can't change throw. I actually played a lot today with just changing the back buttons to be basically L2 and R2, because I could really get a quicker fire rate and a little more responsive fire rate with using the back buttons now instead of the triggers. That's one preference. That's one profile, right? But there's other things, other benefits of just, hey, I'm going to map, X and O or reload or some other piece of functionality to it, so I don't have to take my thumb off of the right joystick. Or you could map, if the D-pad has some sort of functionality, you can map that to it, so you don't have to take your left thumb off the thumbstick, so on and so forth. And so for the $30, I would recommend picking one up if you don't get one for free from me. So be sure to check out that back button attachment. For the money, it's kind of a low risk, proposition to give it a shot. So anyway, moving on. This week there was some conversation about Horizon Zero Dawn going to PC, and that game I think came out late 2016, maybe 2017, early 2017, and the game's incredible. There was a meltdown of sorts on the internet from, again, maybe, look, I don't get the whole brand loyalty for console games. I invest in games, not brands. Granted, I get it. Some people are fans of certain things, but there was of pushback of what is Sony doing here, releasing games on PC, and people were like flat out angry about it, just angry, and that's mind-boggling to me, especially for an old game. You don't need to enjoy the game any less because it's going to PC, right? So just relax a little bit, and not to mention, don't be surprised to see more of this. You know, in 2020, and this kind of goes to the console sales piece of it. In 2020, the money is in software sales and engagement, right? So when previously console manufacturers wanted to move hardware so they could get people to buy their first party, so they would use first party exclusives to get people to buy hardware, so then in turn they were buying more accessories and more games within that specific platform, right? It was a Trojan horse to sell more software and differentiate themselves. The problem ended up being is we started getting to a point where there was this huge demand for more and more power, and because of that, hardware, the margins on hardware became smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point where it started to take years for the companies to go into the black and go into a profitable standpoint from a hardware standpoint. That doesn't mean that isn't important. But if they can continue to do that and still make money out of the gate by putting games on PC, why wouldn't they open up that acquisition channel, right, for software? The money's in the software, right? And so there's this constant argument about who's going to sell more consoles, and I got to be honest with you, I don't think it matters. That doesn't tell the whole story. It's one metric out of many metrics and statistics that you would look at to paint an entire financial picture, right? And that's where financial reports come into play, and annual statements come into play, and investor phone calls come into play. And unfortunately, not a lot of people discuss those details. It's really easy kind of clickbait and fodder for fans and such to argue about this one number of who sold more consoles. And I don't think it's going to matter as much as people think this next generation. And so you fast forward a little bit further in the week, and we got an announcement that, or at least a couple clickbait headlines came out that said Xbox was going to not have any exclusives for the Microsoft Series X come the end of the year. And that's deceiving. Again, this is where it just goes back to the games media is focusing on fanning the flames for these hardcore fanboys. I'm going to say it in quotes, to kind of start these internet arguments, when the truth is there's not. Xbox as a brand is going to have exclusives, right? Like, they're not going to release Halo on the PlayStation, right? That's not going to happen. They're not going to release Gears or Forza on the PlayStation. But the one thing, and this is where I think people have it a little bit, are not seeing the forest for the trees at this point, is we've been in this iterative life cycle already. We've been in it, right? There was the PS4. I get there's naming conventions here, and 4 and 5 signify a new generation, but in bigger hardware and more, you can do more with better hardware. I get it. But if you think about it, you got PS4, PS4 Pro, PS5, and then you have Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, Xbox Series X, right? And so what we have is, I think people were saying, well, the Xbox Series X is going to be the top of the line model, and then they're going to release lower mid-tier models if you want to buy in at a lower price point. I even said that. But the fact is, they already have the lower priced models out, right? The Xbox One, technically the Xbox One S now, the Xbox One X, and then the Xbox Series X. Yes, that naming gets a little confusing. Maybe they'll rebrand those other consoles into a different name. Who knows? But we've already got an iterative tier, and Microsoft has already came out and said basically any new games coming out will be released across the Xbox brand, including PC. And, with the way that these consoles, well, the way that these games, at least for Microsoft, and we'll get to third party in a minute, but at least for Microsoft, when they release a game on PC, that game is scalable for a lot of different hardware. And every game that hits PC kind of has to be, right? It would be incredible if, like, I've got a 2080 Ti. It'd be incredible if somebody just said, we're going to make a game that's basically only made for the 2080 Ti and processors, the 9900K or something, right? But they don't, because there's no money there. So the games on PC are already made to scale up and down with a variety of hardware and price points. So the fact that Microsoft already has consoles that are a variety of power and price points, it's really no different other than you're lifting the games from the PC, which is this kind of custom build your own, to pre-configured boxes in the S, X, and Series X, right? And so it's just not that big of a deal. And as a matter of fact, it's super smart because money is in software. Now, granted, for Microsoft, now they also have 3 versions of the hardware that they can also sell to. Plus, they're hitting an install base of, I don't know how many Xbox Ones were sold, but, maybe 50, 60 million, something like that. I think PlayStation just hit 100 million. So, they already have that install base. They want to get it. Windows 10, they have 100 billion Windows 10 installs already. It's smart to get to PC too. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? Same for Sony. There's 110 billion Windows 10 installs, and I've said this for years. I've said it for years. You can go back and listen to the Serial at Night episodes that Sony would only wish to have that kind of built-in audience with a Sony brand on it. Well, they're not going to be able to brand Microsoft Windows Sony, but they have access to that segment, and they're going to take advantage of it. I can guarantee you that. And you might not buy a PS5 if you can get your Sony exclusives on PC. I don't think they give a shit. I don't think they care. Just like I don't think Microsoft cares. They want to get games in people's hands. Now, they're certainly engaged in creating value and brand recognition and in the PlayStation brand and the Sony brand, right? They don't want to they don't want to lose that. But going to PC is not going to change that, the expectation or I don't think is going to change our perception of what the PlayStation is as a brand. I mean, the PlayStation's been around for 25, 30, almost 30 years now, probably, right? And it's just as synonymous with gaming as Nintendo and Microsoft at this point. And so all of those metrics and that's all of those numbers in a bubble don't mean anything until you put them all together and start looking at financial reports and annual statements and these other things. And I would encourage people to go look at those. They're public. You can get them on the websites. You can go to Sony and get their filings. You can go to Microsoft and get their filings. You can go to Nintendo and get their filings. I'd encourage people to dig a layer deeper than just console sales. Like there's more to it, and it's interesting. And I think I wish the games media would do a better job of communicating some of that stuff instead of just regurgitating the same numbers over and over, because they have reach. They have huge reach. They have much bit longer reach than I do when it comes to communicating some of this stuff. And so that's where I get a little kind of mind boggled just by the arguments that I see. Like, again, it's not illegal either to own multiple systems. And I totally understand that you may not be able to justify buying them all. I mean, quite honestly, going into this next generation, I'm going to buy a Series X, but I play most of my Microsoft games on PC right now. So we'll have to see how that goes. Now, I'd mentioned third parties. Here's the thing we don't know. Third parties Microsoft has announced that their games are going to go back to the Xbox One and blah, 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 blah. Certainly there's going to be cross-generational third-party games. What we don't know yet is, will there be third-party games for the entire generation? I mean, at some point I imagine that some of the third-party games start to, not be cross-generational anymore. And I would assume that, third parties are going to look at it and say, hey, we're going to cut it off because maybe we want to take advantage of more tech, or if we go to the older systems, it's going to really hold back the vision for our game. And Sony's probably going to take that same approach. The thing is, though, third parties, just like Microsoft first party and Sony first party, want to get games in the most hands as possible, right? Now, there was a report that came out, I think the top 20 selling games of the last decade. And I think like 12 of them or something like that, or 9 of them, or 7 of 10, or something like that was Call of Duty. And people were surprised that, sorry, I've had allergies. Sorry, I'm twitching my nose here and about to sneeze every 3 seconds. That Sony first party games didn't make the list. And I don't think you should be surprised if you release a Call of Duty on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. There's just an opportunity. Your target audience is potentially 2-3 times the size of what you're going to have just on one console. So don't be surprised there, but that's where we're starting to see this shift. And I've said it, other people have said it. We're going to hardware agnostic. We're looking at streaming. We're looking at all these different avenues. And so just don't be surprised to see it. Just embrace it. My opinion would be just embrace it and invest in games, not hardware, not brands. Invest in games and buy the hardware that makes sense for you to play the games that you want to play with the performance that you want to play them within your budget, right? And if that's multiple systems, if that's multiple platforms, if that's one platform, but I wouldn't sit there and continuously try to justify it. That's the weirdest part, is trying to justify that purchase. So that's it in a nutshell. And then the a couple other talking points. So there was mention of a bunch of game delays. It is what it is. Of course, what came out of it was more conversations about crunch and blah, 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 blah. I want to have that conversation, but Game Trade, Greg from the Drop Rate was like, hey, I would be interested to have that conversation with you. And so I definitely want to reach out to him and probably have that conversation. I think it's a very good talker. And the one thing I want to clear up, because I'm always very big on career ownership, own your own career. You don't have to work these places. There's a side conversation there where my bigger point is on some of this is how this stuff is reported and people complaining without offering solutions, along with the career ownership point. That said, I think crunch is a problem. I've worked in software development for the last 20 years. I've seen crunch. I've been involved in crunch. It doesn't bother me. I actually like that part of the job. I negotiate my salary based on the understanding that I'm going to have long weeks sometimes, and I'm going to have to crunch to get software and releases out the door. But, that doesn't mean that should be the expectation, right? And so I know that that's part of the conversation, but in competitive job markets, sometimes that's an unfortunate symptom of trying to trying to retain a job in games. But now, nevertheless, I think that's a good talking point. So I'm going to save that for another time. So, until next time, this is episode number 4, and please subscribe, check out the other videos. And if you want to win one of these DualShock 4 back button attachments that I picked up, sub to the channel or go to the Twitter and retweet the tweet that is pinned to my page. So until next time, see ya.